Welcome back to Spearfishing Down Under. This episode is from a day diving recently here in my local area of Brisbane. We have an incredible fishery here off Brisbane. We have a great mix of northern species and southern species. Southern species like snapper, kingfish, northern species, mackerel, coral trout, tuskfish. We have a great mixture here off Brisbane, and this day I'm targeting one of our southern species. I'm targeting the snapper. A snapper here grow to around 10 kilos. If you go further south, they get larger. If you go to New Zealand, they can get up to 15 kilos. But in our waters, a 5 to 7 kilo snapper is a really good fish. This day, I actually shoot 4 snapper. Our bag limit is 4, and it is very, very rare to shoot your 4 fish in your bag limit, simply because they are so tough to target. On this day, I get my 4, and it's probably one of the best days I've ever had targeting snapper. The day started really early. I wanted to get out, and the first spot I wanted to target right on sunrise. So we left in the dark, and as we were getting closer, we watched that sunrise. It was actually quite a beautiful sunrise. First spot we hopped in wasn't quite as clear water as I'd have been expecting, which is not a bad thing for snapper, because sometimes in the dirty water you can get a little closer to the snapper without them actually seeing you. When we hopped in the water, I did notice that it wasn't clean, but it was really fishy. There was surgeon everywhere, which is a really good sign when you're hunting snapper. First dive, when I got to the bottom, I noticed that the surgeons were coming in really tight on me, and I looked around and I couldn't see any snappers, so I thought I'd just wait and scratch a little bit on the bottom and stay as long as I could. Being the fact it was the first dive, I was a little bit just getting stretched and warmed up. As I looked around, I looked up and noticed a big school of snapper coming above me. I tried to slowly get in position. I was at this stage actually probably needing to go to the surface, but the snapper coming close enough that I started to get positioned to make that shot. Unfortunately, just as I was about to shoot that snapper, I bumped a surgeon fish and spooked the snapper and missed my shot. I reloaded, we went up, started the drift again, and I got into similar position and dove again. This time I was a bit more breathed up, a bit more relaxed. I was laying on the bottom, the surgeons came in again, and as I scanned through those surgeons, I just noticed a really nice snapper cruising in. He hadn't seen me, I was in a really good hiding spot, and just swam straight in front of me and gave me a perfect shot. Current started to die, so we actually dropped the anchor and spent a bit of time searching for snapper around this area. I did a dive, and again, I hadn't seen snapper at the start of the dive, but I waited on the bottom. Surgeons come really tight on me, and I started to look up through the surgeons and scratch a little bit, and I tried to tuck in behind a bit of rock, and I noticed a couple of small fish when I first hit the bottom around that 2 kilo mark. As I just waited and waited and waited, 3 really nice snapper come in around that 2 kilo mark, and I picked the biggest one of the 3. He took off, he held me up behind a rock, and again, I don't like leaving fish on the bottom when we have sharks around, so I untangled him and pulled him up on the same dive. The tide was shifting and the fish had shifted a little bit. We moved along about 100 meters and I found the surgeons really thick again. And I dove, and those surgeons come in so tight it was almost impossible to see through them. I scratched a little bit and I waited. I thought certainly going to see a snapper. And towards the end of the dive, I noticed a snapper come into my right. had to swing my gun. And as I swung my gun, I spooked him a little bit and he turned to take off. And I reached to take a shot through the surgeons and I missed. That cheeky thing swam straight back past me. Big knob, beautiful big snapper. After that, I didn't see another snapper for the next hour, so we decided, let's go and look for some other species, and we moved on. Towards the end of one of the drifts, I noticed a bull shark swim underneath me, and he is followed by about 5 cobia. Quickly dove on him and followed him. Fortunately, he didn't take off, he stayed swimming slow, and I was able to pick off one of those cobia. For those of you that aren't spearfishermen and you think that's a crazy thing, this is something that happens quite often. Cobia often follow bull sharks. They're a beautiful eating fish, and I find 99 times out of 100, if you shoot a cobia off the back of that bull shark, the bull shark will actually leave. Very rarely does it come back and eat the cobia. Every now and then it does, but very rarely does it come back and eat the cobia.
Sorry, I was just trying to save your life from a big whaler. Did you see him? He swam right across your back. I just shot there, there's like 5 cobia with him. I reckon he might need a shot in the head, this cobes. I reckon he's going to tear off.
After not seeing any mackerel, we decided to shift again and we went a little wider and the water's a bit clearer and dove an area that I've dove a number of times that's usually really fishy. This spot usually has heaps of cod, a fish that I really enjoy to eat. When you gut them, when you put them in an esky for 2 days, they're one of the tastiest fish in the ocean. Jonesy and I dove together and I figured if you're going to shoot one, let me film it. We lay on the bottom, big school of cod, and Judgy picked a really nice, tasty looking size one and stoned it. After Jonesy shot the cod, I noticed a really big tusky swimming along the bottom, and I quickly dropped on it, and it just started to fin away from me a little bit, and I thought I wasn't going to get a shot, but he slowed up, gave me a look, and I hit him through the back of the head. He smoked me into a cave, and fortunately I was able to get Jonesy to get a second shot and help me get him out.
Just check the shot, just make sure that spear's going through. He was against the ground when I shot him. Proper one, eh?
It's starting to get windy and get really late, so I decided I would go and try and find some snapper before dark, and we headed back to one of the other areas that we like to chase snapper. First dive, again I noticed it was really, really fishy, and I landed right on the edge of the reef in a little bit deeper water. Hung on the bottom, scratched a little bit. And I noticed a really good snapper starting to come in behind the Sergios. My gun wasn't really perfectly in position, so I had to swing my gun slowly underneath me, and that snapper just kept coming right in front of me, and I stoned him. Moved a little bit shallower, and I noticed it was so fishy with lots of surgeons, and I dove, laid on the bottom. And I was scratching and laying, and then there was a long dive. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and I looked behind me, I looked up, looked across. And I looked to my left, and I was just about to push off the bottom. As I looked back to my right, I noticed snapper coming above my head. Now, the hardest shot at any fish is to shoot directly up. But this snapper, the biggest one out of a couple of them that were there, swam directly above me in the sunlight, and I aimed directly up and incredibly shot it straight through the chest, out just behind the hump.
Jonesy, how's the shot? From underneath. They saw him bum me. There was a few of them, mate.
I got to the surface and I was absolutely stoked. I couldn't believe that I've shot 4 snapper in one day. Not just 4 snapper, but 4 really nice snapper. One of them was over the 75 centimeters, but the others were under. And I was absolutely pumped to land this one, especially with the shot, to shoot it from below, through the chest, out the back. One of the shots that is so difficult to do.
Oh yes, a wicked snapper session this afternoon. Sun's just dropping down, and I got a couple of crackers. Absolute beauties. This one's a beast. Loving it. 3 really good snapper and a nice little squire this morning as well. Stoked.
I hope you've been getting out diving. I hope you've been shooting some nice fish. Listen, in the future, we want to continue to do some great how-tos, and I'd love to hear from you on what you'd like to learn from Spearfishing Down Under. Also, we'd love you to like, subscribe, hit that bell so you get notified every time we post a new video.